Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into exactly how toddlers master color sorting. If you spend any time around young kids, you know teaching them colors can honestly feel like an uphill battle, usually ending in a complete meltdown over a blue cup. But it turns out there's a highly structured science behind how their brains process this information. So we're going to unpack the research and the historic frameworks that make this learning process not just easier, but incredibly empowering for the child. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll be covering a biological drive for order, the science of color language, the three-period lesson, tools for visual recognition, and finally, sorting the physical world. Part 1. A biological drive for order, seeking logic in a chaotic environment. This really perfectly captures something you've likely seen play out in real life. If you've ever watched a toddler meticulously line up their toy cars or flat out insist that the blue blocks stay far away from the green ones, you're literally witnessing a biological drive. They naturally seek order because, honestly, their sensory world is completely overwhelming. They're bombarded with sights and sounds every waking minute. So when they're sorting those cars, they aren't just being stubborn. They're acting on a deep-rooted need to impose logic on a totally chaotic environment. Which brings us to the big question. How do we actually help them make sense of that chaotic world? We know the drive is there, but they just can't organize everything without a solid framework. By teaching them to sort something as fundamental as color, we're essentially handing them a master key to process information. Part 2. The science of color language. Optimizing the developing brain. Now, this is a massive aha moment. A surprising Stanford University study found that how you structure your sentences actually dictates color retention. Stating the noun before the adjective gives the brain a logical sequence that drastically speeds up a toddler's ability to grasp abstract concepts. Think about it. Color is super abstract. When you say, "Look at the red tomato," the young brain hears the abstract concept, red, first, but has absolutely nowhere to attach it. The connection just breaks. But if you simply flip the script and say, "This tomato is red," you establish the physical object first, you create a solid anchor, and then you lock the color into place. It prevents cognitive overload and completely optimizes how their developing brain processes relative concepts. Part 3. The three-period lesson. Dr. Maria Montessori's 1907 framework. Developed well over a century ago in Dr. Maria Montessori's very first classrooms, the three-period lesson is a precise, systematic method to introduce new vocabulary. It smoothly transitions a child from passive absorption to active recall. And the best part? We're going to adapt this historic, highly structured methodology right into your kitchen to prevent any frustration or performance anxiety. It's entirely based on observing how kids naturally process info, building their confidence at every single step. Okay, before we jump into the steps, you're going to need a clear workspace and 4 distinct, isolated, solid-colored items. Think along the lines of a red tomato, a yellow banana, green broccoli, and a blue toy whale. It is absolutely crucial that you avoid patterned or multicolored toys here. If a toy is blue, red, and yellow, the child has no idea which attribute you're focusing on. Isolated colors prevent that cognitive overload we were just talking about and build a really clear, stable foundation. So you systematically walk through these 3 steps. Period 1 is naming. You clear the table, place just the tomato, and use our science-backed phrasing, "This tomato is red." This is pure passive absorption with undivided visual focus. Next up, period 2, recognition. You bring all 4 items out, mix them up, and simply say, "Show me green" or "Show me blue." Now, this should be the longest phase. It's a super low-pressure classification stage. If they make a mistake, like you ask for red and they point to the yellow banana, no big deal. You don't say no. You just gracefully revert to step 1, gently remind them, "This tomato is red," and keep going. Finally, period 3, recall. You point to an object and ask, "What is this?" But the strict rule here is that you only test recall when you are 100% sure they know the answer and are going to be excited to shout it out. It guarantees they feel successful the whole way through. Part 4. Tools for visual recognition. The modern pedagogical toolbox. To really support this cognitive leap, we've got an amazing array of physical and visual resources. Stocking your toolbox with low-stimulation materials, simple color matching cards, and articulation cues ensures the child masters just one single concept at a time. Calming watercolor flashcards give them a beautiful, non-distracting visual. Low-stimulation felt videos, featuring super simple images like a red apple or a yellow sun, keep the focus purely on the color, skipping the overwhelming flashiness of modern cartoons. And if they're working on pronunciation, printable mouth speech sound cues are awesome visual aids to show exactly how their lips and tongue should form the words. I want to zoom in on those Montessori three-part nomenclature cards for a second. This specific tool brilliantly introduces pre-reading kids to the idea that pictures and real-world objects can actually be represented by written language. You're probably wondering, why use written words for toddlers who can't even read? Well, the secret is that when they match the separate word label to the control card, they're visually matching the shapes of the letters. It's a phenomenal pre-literacy skill that completely masquerades as a simple color matching game.
Part 5. Sorting the physical world. From static tables to dynamic movement.
All right, let's ramp up the energy. We do this through a color hunt. The goal is to actively scan the environment to find one new matching object for each of those 4 established colors. Pairing gross motor movement with a cognitive task takes the vocabulary totally out of the abstract and cements it into a tangible, real-world context as they literally hunt down a red apple or a yellow rubber duck. They're channeling all that high toddler energy and applying the cognitive labels they just learned to their broader surroundings. Pro tip, you can even pre-stage the items around the room to guarantee they succeed. Finally, when you bring the chaos of all those gathered items back to the table, it results in this visual proof of mastery, a perfectly categorized 8-item sorting grid. You just lay out 4 simple index cards as column headers, and the child independently groups their original 4 items, plus the 4 they just hunted down, vertically under the correct colors. Once they've got this base set down, it's super easy to scale the difficulty by swapping in secondary colors like orange, purple, or pink. So I want to leave you with this final thought. If completing a sorting grid gives a toddler a reliable system for processing colors, how else might imposing order empower them to process their broader physical environment? When a child can independently take a random pile of items and build a perfectly organized grid, they aren't just learning their colors. They're demonstrating their ability to impose order onto their physical world, and that is an absolutely incredible foundation for a lifetime of focused learning. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope you're excited to put these tools to use.